All right.
The host has stopped the video. That's what it says. So.
You should be able to do so. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Rosebel Kagumire. I am an editor at a platform called African Feminism, where we work on documenting African women's and minorities' experiences and their own organizing. So I'm happy to join today on this special day of International Women's Day as we reflect on the work that has been done and that more needs to be done on guaranteeing women's safety online. It's my pleasure to invite Susan El Sayed from Meta. As you know, if we can talk about internet freedom without speaking about the kind of what kind of platforms we have and the management of those platforms and how we as citizens are able to speak back to these platforms and be able to engage in ways that can guarantee safety in real time. So Susan, please welcome to share Meta's own experiences on guaranteeing women's safety online. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rosebel, and thank you for having me. If I can just ask the host to allow me to share my video and share screen, that would be great. Thank you. Oh yeah, here we go. And I'll share my screen right now. Okay, perfect. All right, well, welcome everyone, and thank you so much for your kind invitation to have us as Meta here in this important panel discussion today. I'm really excited to be here. And of course, happy International Women's Day to everyone. And to your sisters, your mothers, to everyone across the continent. So as Rosebel mentioned, my name is Susan El Sayed. I'm Egyptian, but I'm based in London. And I'm the Safety Policy Manager for Africa, Middle East, and Turkey at Meta, or formerly known as Facebook. So one of the key important things that I'd like to highlight very briefly today in today's presentation is our approach to women's safety as Meta. And one of the key important things is that our mission is to give people the power to build community and bring the world closer together. And of course, in order to bring the world closer together, have meaningful conversations online, of course, safety is a top priority for us. And that's why safety, the way we approach safety is in a 5 holistic points approach or focus areas, which is partnerships, policies, safety tools, resources, and feedback. And I can already see some of our partners are actually online today, so really great to see you here. But to highlight a little bit about partnerships is we believe in partnerships with NGOs, academic researchers, safety experts, women's safety experts, and women's rights organizations, because we know that we're not experts at everything. We know that we need such expertise in order to further develop and improve our technology, our safety features, and policies. Which brings me to our policies, which is community standards, which I'll briefly also again highlight just given the amount of time. And then we'll discuss about some of the safety tools that I'd like to highlight today. And definitely that is not an exhaustive list of all of the beautiful safety features that we do have in order to keep women safe on our platforms. And of course, I'll cover some of the resources. And lastly, and basically today's panel discussion is a perfect example, is getting the feedback from our community who are using the Meta platforms so we can know how can we better improve our services and our policies and our technology. Now, I'll briefly highlight here about policies. So allow me to read this for you. So our global community standards and related policies aim to find the right balance between giving people a place to express themselves and promoting a welcoming and safe environment for everyone. Now, first of all, you'll find the community standards. It's publicly available on fb.com/community standards. But also it's really key to understand that the community standards are placed so you have visibility of what are do's and don'ts. Those are the house rules for all of the Meta platforms. And you'll find different ones that will be for the different platforms. But it's really essential to understand how can we have some space where we can express ourselves freely, but also at the same time, we know our digital rights or our digital also responsibilities and duties in order to offer a safe environment for everyone. Now, of course, we cover our community standards govern a variety of policies, and those specific policies are huge, and the list goes on. However, these are just some of examples that we do cover, whether it's non-consensual intimate imagery, whether it's fake names, fake accounts. We do govern, the policies govern a lot of those across the world. Now, one of the policies that we have advanced at the end of last year, and it's very exciting, is that we advanced our policies on online bullying and harassment. Specifically, it was even targeted towards women who are public figures. And when we do say public figures, we do include content creators, we do include politicians, we also include journalists and activists, and of course, we include the content creators who are on Facebook and Instagram specifically above a certain, with a specific number of followers. Of course, you can find all of this information publicly available again on our platforms. And this specific policy also is combating coordinated mass harassment, is also combating brigading and overly sexualizing individuals when they are interacting with their constituents or their followers. We want to make sure they're safe. At the same time, we want to also, of course, provide the followers to have a meaningful conversation, but not to the point that it would come at the expense of the safety and the dignity of the public figures. Now, of course, our policies are only as good as our enforcement. And one of the key things I'd like to highlight here, and especially in the region I cover, is reporting is really crucial, but it's not as common as we would like it to see. And one of the key things to understand is when you're reporting anonymously. No one will ever know. And it's really crucial that whatever you find that is, you may think that is violating to our community standards, please do report it, even if, and especially if you're feeling uncomfortable. First of all, everything can be reported, whether it's an Instagram live, even an Insta story, a user account, or even a direct message. And I'll show you some of our key advancements in that. Most are reviewed within 24 hours. However, our artificial intelligence also supports us in proactively detecting violating content to our community standards, but also helps us to prioritize content for review. Now, you're not always talking to AI because we have our human reviewers. We have 40,000 people in safety and security globally, and 15,000 of those are content reviewers speaking more than 70 languages, including dialects, and they're available in over 20 global sites. Now, one of the key things is we are very keen on transparency, and that's why we have our publicly available quarterly community standards enforcement report. Now, this report covers what are the content that we have proactively detected and removed, even with regards to women's safety, but also what content that was reported and enforced upon. Now, we've covered partnerships, policies, and now we're going to cover a little bit about our safety tools. First of all, is you're completely in charge. I know that sometimes you can hear something different, but actually on the Meta platforms, you're completely in charge of your whole experience. And we've designed it in a way that you are in control of what you see, what people see, what you share, and who can share things with you. First of all, I'm not going to cover all of the safety tools, as I mentioned, just due to the amount of time, and I'd love to start the panel discussion as soon as possible, of course. But one of the key things that we started or we launched at the end of last year also is the remove or ban people. Right now, if you have a Facebook group or a Facebook page, and you would like to block someone specifically, for example, like here, Christine, you're not going to block her once. You can also now block Christine and any new accounts they may create. which is really helpful in order to save that community that you have in your group or page, and you do not need to always track if, for example, Christine Watts is back with a different name or a different account. You can block them and any new accounts they may create. Also, at the same time on Messenger, we have replaced ignore with restrict. And now we're restricting people. And this is really helpful because when you restrict someone, first of all, they will not see your online activity, but also they will not see that you've read their messages. This has proven to be very, very helpful, especially for victims of abuse who do not want to trigger the abuser even further with by blocking them. And working with safety experts, women safety experts, they did advise that this would be the most helpful tool and safety tool for the victims. Also, at the same time, just as you can block someone on Facebook group and a Facebook page and any new accounts they may create, now it's also all available on Messenger. Another thing now on our another Meta platform is Instagram. And one of the key things that we have, hidden words, which is also available on our Facebook group and pages, is that you can protect people from seeing offensive DMs, direct messages, or comments. And we have a bank of words and emojis that are already in place. However, now you can also add any other words that you do not maybe want to see. Also, if someone direct messages you with those words or emojis, it will be filtered into the message requests. Now, to jump to another Meta platform is our WhatsApp. And this is the first of its kind in comparison to any messaging platform from around the world. So right now you can do message level reporting. And message level reporting means that when there's something that's violating the community standards in a specific message on your WhatsApp, you can report the specific message and will be forwarded along with the most recent 5 messages to WhatsApp in order to be enforced upon. Now, as this is end-to-end encrypted, of course, as you know, we are not able to scan unless you report. And that's why we really emphasize on reporting. One of the key things that I'd like to highlight, and of course, some of our global partners who are on this website or mentioned on this website are also on this call, is stopncii.com. We're definitely against NCII. We're trying to tackle it in many ways. And this is one of the key partnerships that we just had and we just launched in December 2021. This website is first of its kind, and it's actually managed by UK Revenge Porn Helpline, the leading NGO for NCII. And one of the things is that right now, if any user feels, male or female, feels that their images, their intimate images will be shared online without their consent, they can create a case, and these images will be proactively detected and removed from Facebook or Instagram. So please do visit it, and we do have a lot of our partners across Sub-Saharan Africa. Now, as we finished partnerships, policies, tools, a little bit about our resources is that, first of all, we have the Help Center and the Safety Center, both for Facebook and Instagram, and the Help Center is also available for the other platforms. The Help Center has frequently asked questions that you can check for reporting, privacy, or managing your account. And on the other hand, we have the Safety Center, which also provides specific tools that can be helpful for you for your offline world and the online world. And also it can have some in-country NGOs that you can target or you can contact. Some of the women's safety resources that we offer is, first of all, we have the Women's Safety Hub. And that includes a lot of information and a lot of tools and resources and even courses for journalists, public figures, victims of abuse. We also include our partners and a lot more. We have a specific training for public figures called She Leads. We also include a lot of the other guides, and it's available in many languages across that also is covered across the region with regards to how to stay safe, safe on our platforms while engaging with your constituents or with your followers. And finally, one of the key things that we have launched also during COVID is the support for domestic abuse victims. So one of the key things why we included it under COVID is that so it's working with women's safety experts and NGOs, they did say that not to make it explicitly saying that this is support for domestic abuse, so that the victims, because the abusers may be triggered and can cause further harm. However, we included it within our COVID Information Center, so it's discreet, and at the same time, we're securing the security of these victims. Lastly, I'm really excited to start the panel discussion and hear more from your questions, from your and also with the conversation that we're going to have. And that's why feedback is really crucial for us in order to always improve our technologies and policies. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Susan, for the snippet into the kind of work and the tools that you're availing for users to be able to combat online violence against women and other social groups that are, minoritized in the real world, and the impact of that also showing up in online spaces. That's what we have to remember, that online violence does not exist in isolation. It is a kind of already existing environment that perpetuates this and enables it to continue, and also other forms to emerge online. Thank you for that. To get into our panel discussion, we have a great lineup of speakers today, and we're honored with Honorable Neema Rulangira, who is a member of parliament representing NGOs in the Tanzanian National Assembly, will be joining us on this panel. We also have Honorable Sarah Opendi, who is the chair of the Uganda Women Parliamentary Association in the Ugandan Parliament. We also have Justice David Batema, who's a judge at the High Court of Uganda. And last but not least, we have Nashilongo Javesius, and I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce your name right, who is a technology researcher and will take us through the nitty-gritties of what we need to know about safety online. So to build up a bit further on what Susan has taken us through, I would like to invite Nashilongo to give us a bit about yourself and your work, and then dive into the work you have done on digital rights and online violence against women. I hope you'll be able to give us what are the issues that stand out currently, and what can we urgently address in terms of policy making, but also on the tech level. You're welcome, Nashilongo.
Thank you, Rosebell, and thanks everybody for having me here today. Yes, my name is Nashilongo Gervasius. I am currently in Windhoek in Namibia. For sometimes I have been doing advocacy work, but also research in this space. Recently, we have just concluded a research with the funding from the Africa Digital Rights Fund, through CIPESA, and we were interrogating actually the prevalence of online violence against women and girls in Namibia, and but also obviously amongst other communities, obviously such as the Ovahimba communities in Namibia. The results obviously are very starking. I think it's what a lot of women knows. It's a lot of women experience daily, and I'll be happy to just look at that. But on the other side, we also concluded a 8-country research with funding from Facebook. We're so happy that the public policy team from the Facebook in Southern Africa was very happy, was very forthcoming in engaging in this report. We've partnered with the Internet Society, obviously, the Namibia chapter, Gender Links, we at the University of Pretoria Center for Human Rights, CIPESA, our longtime partners, but also policy. I want to believe That's it. Yes. Again, maybe I could look at some of the recommendations that we have made, if it's so, or I could come back after that. But maybe just briefly, there's a lot of findings that we found. For instance, that during the pandemic, in particular, the online violence has obviously risen throughout the 8 countries that we have covered. That was also the same in Namibia, particularly because everybody has gathered online, and they found ways to possibly that's the only way that they could get engaged. That speaks to possibly the skills that we lack when we get online and to issues of meaningful engagement. But also, I think the others are what we already know, and I think that's what Suzanne has alluded to, that has, for instance, raised the need for them to have particular projects that targets women in leadership. So obviously, women in leadership, women in politics, women and girls in leadership are special targets to online violence. Maybe also just to allude here that within the 8 countries, amongst the 8 countries that we have studied, none of those 8 countries have particular policy or even legislative framework that deals with online violence. So what we see, what this study actually have been teaching us, or have been revealing to us, is that online violence at most has to be dealt with as a normal case of normal case of taking somebody to court for injury to self or harassment, and there's no particular way in how it is framed within the local laws within those countries. So there's a need for us to get to that. Our study was also looking at the LGBTI communities. I'll be also happy to look at it, even though it didn't really delve into that. And amongst others, it also, to a certain extent, included people with disabilities. So Rosebel, I'll end here, and then I'll add. I would like to come back a bit later if so.
Thank you so much for that snapshot into those issues that you're researching on. Please, if you're sharing information from this webinar, you can use hashtags Internet Freedom Africa and Digital Equal Online, so that we are able to share beyond this room. Thank you for everybody that is supporting and amplifying the voices from this room to the rest of the people online. I would like to see how we can build on what Susan and Nashilongo have shared, particularly in looking at the policy making. And then at this point, I'd like to hear from Honorable Nima Lugangira from Tanzania in terms of how the states are dealing with this. You know, there's a continued vacuum between the rights that people enjoy outside, but also the rights online, and how the states at the National Assembly in Tanzania has been able to grapple with these issues, and what kind of outcomes that have been put forward. You're welcome, Honorable.
Oh, sorry. Hi, everyone. Hello, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I trust that you're all well. As introduced, my name is Nema Lugangira. I'm from Tanzania, a member of parliament here in Tanzania. And I've been a member of parliament now for about, I think, a year and 4 or 5 months or so. I firstly want to congratulate CIPESA for all the great work that you're doing. And it's great to see Nashilongo here as well. Congratulations for the great work that you're doing. And having listened to the presentation from Meta and Nashilongo, and based on the question that you just asked, I think what I can share first is a little bit of background in the sense that the way in which the digital sector has developed, it's developed so fast while the policies that govern the sector haven't developed as fast, because up until this point, a lot of African countries like Tanzania doesn't yet have things like the Data Privacy Act. We have the Cyber Bill, but still within it, the issues of online abuse are not very clear. So one of the things that I have personally done is I've been active online before being a member of parliament, and having tried to continue being active online after being a member of parliament, I can confidently tell you that the two worlds are way apart. It's actually quite horrific for a parliamentarian to be active online. And I'm saying that with experience of being active online prior to having the title of a parliamentarian. And the impact of that, it not only has an impact to the parliamentarian themselves, but what it leads to is it's kind of preventing us to use our freedom of expression, our freedom of speech, because the easiest thing to do when you're constantly receiving, cyberbullying, mob bullying, and such is to keep quiet. And when you keep quiet, but you're a leader, you're a public leader, you're a politician, you're a parliamentarian, you have to engage with your people. So it's blocking that freedom of expression, freedom of speech. But the further impacts on it, many of us want to see more women, more young girls, more youth getting into political positions and decision-making positions. But when they see that, whoa, look at how Nima is being treated, I don't want to be treated like that. So do you think they'll want to get into politics? They won't, because it's like almost natural that once you're a politician, that comes with the title and you have to endure it. So I few months ago, I experienced a massive, insane cyberbullying, mob attacks, trolling. And during that entire period, I tried my best to still kind of defend myself. But what I came to realize is that nobody comes to the defense of a parliamentarian being trolled. Even the so-called female activists, like they wouldn't. So then I started wondering, okay, wait, we have different campaigns going on that are promoting online safety, that are promoting, best behavior online to make the online space safe for everybody. But why is it different if a parliamentarian is being attacked? So there's almost a perception that we kind of deserve it, or we should expect it. So that led me to an interest to be like, okay, maybe I went through it. Maybe I went through it so that I can do something about it, to use my voice as a parliamentarian, and raise awareness to this issue. So I started looking at our different gender-based violence, national guidelines, national policies. And we have one that's called Mtakuwa. It's like a national plan to combat gender violence on women and children. But at the time when that plan was being put into place, the use of social media wasn't that much. So obviously, online gender-based violence is not yet recognized as a GBV. But the states in which we are now, it's time that online gender-based violence gets recognized as a GBV. Even if you look at the UN Women level, it's still not vividly recognized as a GBV, while it hinders a lot of things. And I can just quickly give another example, is that I can just give a quick example. in our parliament, we have about 143, 146 female parliamentarians. But literally the ones who are active online, we probably are less than 15. Or maybe even 15 is a lot, maybe we're less than 10. So you can imagine, even if it's 15, it's about 10%. And there's also a notion publicly that female parliamentarians because we don't work as much as other counter. And how can you be online if it's not safe? So listening to the brief from Meta, I kind of feel that the multinational tech companies have a role to play in making sure that the online space is safe. Why am I saying this? Most of us are using social media, but we don't even know how to protect ourselves. Most of us. And most of the social media platforms have a very rigid process of being verified. Now, as a parliamentarian, the more you're active online, the more visibility you're getting, the more prone you are to abuse or even people making fake accounts. But then to go through the process of getting verification, it's almost impossible. Perhaps they do that because some of us come from little countries which they don't know very well, or for whatever reason. So I think there is a need also for the multinational tech companies to categorize even these verifications and have some sort of different requirements for female parliamentarians, if at all we want to make sure that they're safe. That's on one side. But on second, I hear there's a lot of trainings that gets done, a lot of interventions that get done, but most of this don't include parliamentarians. So we are going on with our lives using social media without having the proper training, proper capacity building. And then on the other hand, we are the ones who are responsible for putting in the legislations. So maybe prior to my own experience online, I wouldn't have maybe fully comprehended the urgency and the importance of a Data Privacy Act. If I'm to be sincere, just be like, yeah, data protection, okay, great. But having experienced people stealing pictures that I post on Instagram, edit them, put words on them, post them on Twitter, then I'm like, hang on, wait a minute. We need a Data Privacy Act, because what can I do because if I had that, I could have used that this person stole my pictures. And then we have another huge challenge in trying to make the online space safe, is the anonymous accounts. A lot of people who cause online harassment, online abuse are fake. They're not fake accounts, but they're using fake identity. Now, when you go to the Meta, the Twitter, etc., there is a caveat that allows people to use fake identity for purposes of activism, protection, etc. But then when that person is being abusive, where do you draw the line? And I heard our colleague from Meta saying that the issue of reporting has a challenge. Definitely it'll have a challenge. Even when I experienced it, how do I report someone who's not known? So I think there are things that need to be discussed further. So my entire experience led me, one, to start up it led me to set up a hub called Omuka Hub, which is focusing on making sure communities from peripheral regions benefit from digital opportunities. And there our focus is internet safety, because of one of the reasons the MPs and other political figures. Second is digital inclusion and digital advocacy. And through that, we were able to set up a group of MPs championing against online gender-based violence on women in politics. And throughout, I've been trying to find different opportunities that can capacitate us as parliamentarians, so that in the long run, we can have more female parliamentarians online, we can showcase our work better, but we can participate in such engagements, and most importantly, be part of the process of making sure we have legislation that can make the digital sector to thrive, but also make the online safe space and take advantage of our regional corporations that we have. For example, we have EAC, we have SADC, ECOWAS, etc. I think I can end there for now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Rugangira, for that personal story. It's very important to always remember that behind the stories we have, behind the data we put on violence against women and girls, that there are people, that this affects people. And I see somebody in the chat talking about the impact of online violence against journalists, particularly female journalists in Uganda. Thank you for sharing that award, Isabella. Very important to talk about how then you can support in the midst of this, where the media they work for might not be giving them the right support. So I hope that will be the feedback will come through as we go along. But it's always important to remember that there are people behind all these issues that we are talking about. In coming to Uganda, definitely when Honorable Rugangira was sharing her story, and to mind came to the story of Honorable Sylvia Wawogo, an ex-member of parliament in Uganda who was harassed. And the idea that if you're in power, you cannot be harassed, and the little understanding of how, patriarchy and misogyny operates beyond who you are, whether you're a woman on the street selling what you're selling, or you're working in an office, or you're you're a member of parliament. That actually violence does not leave you at certain doors, that it follows you and changes its ability, and also in many ways takes away certain ability to fight back. So it's very important to have all these mechanisms and collectives that can support the different women and girls that we are talking about when it comes to online violence. So coming to Uganda, then I would like to call on Honorable Sarah Opendi, who's the chair of Uganda Women Parliamentary Association. We know that there's been a consistent documentation of cases of online violence against women, but majority of them actually go unreported because we have inherent issues with reporting systems and justice systems. So it'll be good to hear in terms of what the Women Parliamentary Association has done or can do in order to make online violence against women the issue and finding solutions in that space. You're welcome, Honorable Pendi. I can't hear you, Honorable.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Fine.
You're welcome. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much, moderator. And thank you, CIPESA, for organizing this webinar. Happy Women's Day to all the participants. And I want first and foremost to state that it's 43 years since the Convention on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women was held and adopted. And of course, as a country, we actually ratified this in 1985. I want to state that this digital space is actually a new era, and we do appreciate that it comes with quite very good opportunities for both women and girls. Unfortunately, we do not yet have data on how many women are actually using this digital space. I have tried to find some statistics, but it's they are just estimates, so I cannot use them. But what I want to state is that online violence is very much with us. You just mentioned the case of the Honorable Member of Parliament, and by the way, she lost her seat partially because of that case. And you can see that people don't appreciate this online violence. And once a woman reports, actually, it's very unfortunate that people turn around. Even the people who should be helping you to investigate the case actually move to blame you for actually, it seems it's your fault. So this is really a problem, not just for the women and girls, but even the law enforcement agencies. We need to do a lot of training to bring them on board, to appreciate the various laws that are in place. Uganda as a country, certainly we have enacted, for example, the Computer Misuse Act is in place, 2011. But if you look at how many cases, how many convictions, or how many cases have moved beyond the police station, including I myself, I have reported various cases where people have impersonated me, opened up accounts, Facebook and whatever in my names, you know, at a certain point, even fleecing the public. Of course, being a minister then, they would open up an account and post various, you know, vacancies in a particular sector in the Ministry of Health, which positions were actually not there. And even when I reported to the police, I would write one statement after another until I gave up. So you can see that the challenge, we may put in place the relevant policies, we may put in place the relevant laws, but for as long as the law enforcement agencies themselves do not appreciate that these online crimes are real and the women need to be protected, we shall not certainly move far with that. So in addition to, of course, the women, the online crimes and the reporting and the challenges with the law enforcement agencies, we also have the other bigger problem that even amongst ourselves as legislators, we still don't appreciate. We don't look at the opportunities and we don't even appreciate the tools. I know the previous speaker spoke about the various security tools that they are in, but how many of us know about these tools? I was actually looking at some of them when she was speaking, but many people are ignorant. We are carrying these gadgets, but we don't know how to use them. So that ignorance is partially a problem and causing a lot of insecurity to us as women and girls. And most people have either gone offline or simply decided to keep quiet. I want to give you my own other example. Somebody opened up a WhatsApp group and put all the ministers, then I was a minister, in that WhatsApp group. And the title was Professional Hackers. And this person was telling us to engage him if we wanted to hack into any banks or what, and would share the proceeds. And I remember asking the Minister of Internal Affairs then whether we could not get this person. How can we be on a WhatsApp platform where somebody is saying he's a professional hacker? I exited the group and of course blocked this person. But the person got back to my phone and he unblocked himself and he was busy sending messages to me and telling me we are professional hackers. So whatever you do, we shall undo. So, and I didn't know what to do next. I have continued unblocking and the person gets back. Even recently again, got back to my line. I blocked. So these are all challenges. I don't know what else or where else. I've tried to report. I hope those responsible can follow up and get these people. So what I just want to say is that the digital space would be quite beneficial for the various women, especially in my country where we have had very few women in business. And with this COVID that has created all these complications and challenges for the women, most people got into online marketing, and this would be something that we would carry forward. Unfortunately, we can't move now with what follows through after that, because we've had people's phones, people's accounts hacked into. We've had people's, even in the banks, using information that they pick from the various people on their phones. We have the Data Protection and Privacy Act 2019, and that law is intended to protect one's data. But somehow people get access to this information and they use it negatively, to our disadvantage. So I want to say that online violence is real. And maybe moving forward as legislators, sorry, I'm sweating. As legislators, what we need to do is to maybe amend the Computer Misuse Act that is existing. Unfortunately, one of the members sought leave, the Honorable Nsereko, and he was granted leave about 2 weeks ago. We hope to amend that Computer Misuse Act, and hopefully we shall have maybe more stringent punishments in that law, but also the Data Protection Act, which is in place, and see how to protect further. But also the Domestic Violence Act, as one of the members said, that we are not yet looking at online violence as violence against women. So maybe it may not be housed there, but we have to find a way of really legislating against this online violence against women and girls. And of course, for our young girls, it's quite unfortunate that now we are moving into online learning. But, a kid is online learning, and then you get this kid being diverted into pornography sites. This poses a challenge. Unfortunately, our Anti-Pornography Act was quashed by the courts. We'll have to look at how to bring this back, maybe reintroduce it and address the concerns as raised by the courts. So allow me to end by saying that we have the necessary policies and legislations as a country. However, enforcement remains a challenge, but also society appreciating that online violence is real and unfortunately affects women more than the men. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's so brilliant. Going from personal to the national kind of experience and sharing. Thank you, Honorable Pendi, and reminding us the sheer amount of mental anguish that online violence actually puts on people. It doesn't matter if someone is putting you in a group that you don't intend to be in, but actually it brings a certain level of mental anguish, and we need to recognize that it's violent. And reminding us of laws like of course, we saw the anti-pornography law struck down by the court, and in many ways rightly so, because it had become a tool of oppressing women on the other hand, rather than protecting them. As we saw, majority of people who had been convicted and given by the Anti-Porn Committee were women, because of the sheer imbalance of power in a society where we live, that women are more likely to be victims of this unsolicited, unconsented image sharing. Indeed, the law was very adamant and did not really put into that consideration on how the reality looks like for especially young women. We saw a lot of university girls, singers, women from different backgrounds being victims under that law. So the hope is that the next legislation would understand deeply when we are talking about consent and lack of consent when it comes to digital platforms, what it means. Thank you so much. I would like to bring in a comment from Tendai. from the chat who says we need genuine political will, especially on the part of our national governments in enacting and enforcing laws that protect cyberbullying and harassment, especially against women. The problem I've seen is that some of our African leaders are more focused and interested in stamping down on anti-government online comments than personal attacks on individuals. That is very well noted in terms of what are even the laws that we have, what are we using them for, where are we putting the resources, who is being protected, who is being left unprotected. That is a very, very important point, Tendai. And at this point, I would like to bring in, we are talking about justice. It's very important to know that we have at the end of the law, who is dispensing justice, that the systems understand what the laws that are before us, and also what we are grappling with as a people as we go online. So I would like to bring in Justice David Batema from the High Court of Uganda, who can look at the cyber laws and share a little bit about cases that have gone through the court system in Uganda on safeguarding the digital rights of women, and what is lacking, what needs to be done more, and what are the successes that we could look at and say, this is what we need to be doing. Justice Batema, you're welcome to address this webinar. Thank you.
I'm grateful for having been invited once more again to share with you. And okay, let's get online. If you can get my picture, the better. Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
Fine.
Yeah.
When I was here last time, I told the people that I'm not so digital, that I'm actually analog. What did I mean? That we are put in positions where we are supposed to judge and enforce people's rights. But when we have not really been deliberately trained into using the gadgets. And now I can see there is a lot of light in the background. I need to change that. Unless an IT expert helps me here, I may not be so clear. But as courts of law, we don't not merely enforce policy. We are trained and we are mandated to enforce the law, not the policy. The policy can be persuasive. But when you come to us, as we do the post-mortem of what happened where we were not, we look for evidence of whether there is a crime committed. And crimes are a creature of parliament, a creature of the legislature. So if my MP Sarah Opendi does not make the law, my hands are tied. If the parliament makes the law, we ask, is it a civil wrong or is it a criminal wrong? And if it's a criminal wrong, then we say there is a burden of proof upon the prosecution, upon the police to prove its case beyond reasonable doubt. The standard is beyond reasonable proof, and that's not easy. But if it is a civil wrong, then it should be proved on a balance of probabilities. That's the law. So as we look at our members of parliament, we ask, have you made this a wrong? And if you have made it a wrong, online harassment, online violence? Is it a crime? If it's a crime, what are the ingredients of the offense? Like you'll ask for a beer and they say, what are the ingredients? You ask for medicine and they say, what are the ingredients? Now, in law, you must prove the ingredients. If it is rape, for example, prove that a woman was forced into sexual intercourse against her consent. Those ingredients must be proved. If it is defilement, prove that this was a child below 14 years or below 18 years, and the sexual act was performed upon her, and as a last ingredient, that the accused is the person who participated in the commission of that offense. Now, when it comes to online, as my MP, Honorable MP Saropend said, we must have laws in place. Hello?
Yes,
Are we still there?
yes, we can hear you.
Good. We must have laws in place that punish the offense, that prescribe the ingredients of the offense, which must be proved. We must have standards set by parliament, not by court. So for me, I'll sit and I say, well, I wasn't there. What happened? Who did what? How was it done? Now, with online violence, we still have a long way to go. Much as my MP says there is a law. Yes, the law has got some gaps, which we call lacunas in the law. There is a lacuna. How admissible is this evidence? For example, if you brought your phone and said, this is my phone, this is what was sent to me, then you prove that it is Kagumire who created this thing and sent it to you. You prove the mens rea, that she had this intention, because we don't only punish the act, but the intention in the mind, the mens rea. Not until we sit down with the members of parliament or the lawmaking bodies and tell them that we must punish this. And these are the ingredients. This is the salt you must add. This is the curry powder you must add. So then it becomes an offense. Not until we do that, we shall not have a law in place. Even if we have a policy, we do not implement policies in court. Those can be maybe government ministries and NGOs doing the policy. For us, we want the law, and the law is prescribed punishments. The law with prescribed maybe, what can I call it? Baseline, and say, you have proved that you were actually injured. You're entitled to these damages. Otherwise, people will continue with the lamentations. And you know, the book of Lamentations in the Bible doesn't give us options out. So for me, I would really advocate for gender sensitive training of the members of parliament, because we have got people from various walks of life in parliament to make law. Some are lawyers, some are engineers, some are doctors, some are vegetable growers, and they know nothing about the law. So not until we train them shall we have the law made, shall we have the right policies made, shall we have the right ingredients put in the offense. Otherwise, me, I'm very grateful that at least CPESA is opening eyes of other people out there. People are beginning to listen, to say, well, is that a crime? Well, is that a wrong? Should I really be prosecuted for that? Or should I be sanctioned? Is sexual harassment really a crime? Where? How? When? What? Today, I'm so excited. My daughter drew a face of a lady, and I've been posting it to friends saying, Happy Women's Day, Daddy. I love you. You are the best. You are very strong. You are very kind. Then she reminded me, said, Dad, you got a medal for advocating for women's rights. Where is that medal? When I was getting out, I went back to the house and put it on. I don't know whether I'm able to show it to you here. The medal. Here is the medal given to me for advocating for women's rights. So I'm happy to be here. I'm not here to blast Parliament. I'm here to say that lawyers and judges use the law, but the law is not in place. I'm saying it is inadequate. Merely banning or removing people from online doesn't help. Whatever is not prohibited by the law is allowed by the law. Let's continue with the debate.
Thank you so much for reminding us of what the basics need. We need to return to the basics when we are demanding justice before the courts of law. So definitely a lot of work to do with our policy-making bodies. Thank you, Justice Batema, on this point. I would like to bring back some questions from back to Susan, because you were the first presenter. There's a lot of questions to you, but I wanted to bring you back in the fact that even if you gave us all these tools that we're using, we can use, there's still a lot of gaps for users across the continent with different languages in accessing that kind of protection for different languages as people use Meta platforms. So I would like to hear more on that, but also then building from the questions that we have, then someone wanted to hear your take on regulation of online platforms, the regulation as a whole. But I wanted you to go back and tell us the challenges, the gaps that still existing, because we have so many languages on this continent and the violence has no one language. So what can we do? What are we doing in that? Then you can come to the regulation quickly. Thank you.
Absolutely. First of all, I'd like to thank all the speakers. It's been such an interesting panel discussion. And thank you so much, Rosabelle, for moderating it very eloquently. So definitely, one thing that we believe in is an internet problem requires a multi-stakeholder approach. So it requires an industry collaboration. It requires a multi-stakeholder collaboration in order to face it. So when you say about the gaps, so definitely there's more that we can do. Definitely that's why we're engaging very heavily across sub-Saharan Africa, across even other regions, to engage with even women parliamentarians, to engage with NGOs, with governments, to really see where can we fit, where can we provide even more support, where can we also raise awareness about reporting. And as I mentioned, reporting is quite low across the region. And this is why this is one thing that we stress on, because you do say we do, like there's so many languages and even dialects within the continent. And one of the key things is that why reporting is important is that bullying and harassment, for example, is very contextual. And what is allowed in one culture is bullying in the other. And that's why when reporting is continued, then we're able to educate our machine learning. Of course, there's definitely much more we can do, and that's why we're partnering with Nashilongo to really research, to really see for example, in SADC what is happening. We're trying to figure out where are the gaps and how can we come in. Now, with regards to the languages, we do, as I mentioned, we have content reviewers who are human, not only our machine learning, that speak more than 70 languages around the world, and it's continuously growing. We even hire individuals who are in our offices who are from the different markets and different countries around the continent in order to be able to also engage with the users, understand if there's anything violating our community center, but also understand the local context, because that's really crucial. So this is definitely something that we are doing, and we're of course going to continuously invest in. Only just till the last 5 years, we have invested around $11 billion for insecurity and safety globally. And now with regards to the regulations question, we are not against regulations, of course. I think actually regulations help us to have a clear idea and a clear image of how to operate within different regions. And that's why we work very closely with governments, with legislators, with policymakers to really understand how are they viewing the digital world, but also not forgetting that the digital world is a global world. And it's globalization plays a huge role in the internet world, and information will always be exchanged across different markets in a split second. So this is also something important to remember. But of course, we're not against regulations. We welcome it, and we work very closely with any regulation that comes by our public policy teams, who, for example, National Long is very aware of in Southern Africa, but we also have for East Africa and Anglophone Africa and Francophone. So we're very active in that, and we always try to listen to and be a listening partner to really understand how can we work together.
Thank you so much, Susan, for that succinct intervention. I wanted to bring in a comment from Susan Juliet. I'll just kind of shorten it, who says that social media isn't going away, that elected officials must learn to ignore the noise and treat it as an unpleasant part of the job, and the fact that this is public office and you're out there for public scrutiny. And for me, public scrutiny is very important in holding people accountable and asking people to pay the price of being in a public office. But we have to remember, ultimately, we're talking about violence. We are not talking about just gossip or anything. We're talking about sheer violation of women, that at the end of the day, you have women in office, they can't even go online. They are not even going to go and have a public presence. That's the level of violence. So we can talk about public scrutiny, but if people are even scared of being online, then it tells you that the threshold of that scrutiny is rooted in misogyny, and we need to address that. So, but I wanted to bring in Nashilongo to talk briefly about maybe from the research, from your research, in terms of the idea that elected officials, this is public scrutiny, and not only elected officials, it actually applies to many women in any position of power and visible, any women that are visible. Nashilongo, if you could just talk briefly about that. How do we separate that public scrutiny, but also the recognition of violence against women that exists?
Thank you, Rosebell. I think there's our research is, and I think even from women experience and politicians experience, or even from journalists and women activist experience, is that this is beyond the scrutiny. The violence goes beyond the scrutiny, because if indeed it was scrutiny, why aren't we seeing the same trends, the same experience being, happening to men, male politicians, male journalists? Why aren't we seeing, male journalists being, send coffins, as a reminder of saying, don't touch those kind of stories, because you could be the next person in this coffin. So the violence is very polarized. The violence is very gendered, and there's evidence to that. And I think even from platforms perspective, and from us as activists and also as researchers, the evidence is there. This is beyond, it's beyond, publicly holding somebody accountable. We also see that even, from a police perspective, for instance, maybe not before I go to the police, the fight of policy changes or calling for policy reformation, even within Parliament, especially when it speaks about violence online, it is left with the women to deal with them, because it's supposedly their issue. The male parliamentarians can't relate. This has become some sort of like, we're dealing with the economic issues, and there's evidence to such an extent. So because of patriarchy and because of misogyny and you know, with the systems that has created us. We see more and more women then decide not to engage with this aspect. In 2019, for instance, we have also done the same kind of training here in Namibia, also again with support from CIPESA and partners. And even then, it was prior to the elections, and women went as forthcoming. They were like, we don't want to be seen so you know, weak. We don't want to be seen as too defensive of being attacked. So, and this is how, you know, misogyny and patriarchy works, right? That you should, you know, trains women to bear the blame and deal with it. So again, I think coming back to your answer, to your question rather, Rosebell, this is beyond you know, holding people accountable. The evidence is there. UNESCO has developed a number of researches, for instance, on women journalists being faced with so much violence. Here we are with CIPESA and the work that we've been doing on the region, and researches that women parliamentarians, women journalists, women activists are highly targeted, and we know that it is most likely to target women, and they suffer the consequences, and the consequences are so many, and we don't see the same violences headed towards men. And there's a lot of things that we could do. For instance, platforms needs to be more more proactive in providing those data. There's also lack of data being collected and being at local level. I mean, if you walk into a police station today and you ask for data of how many people came into the police station over the last year and reporting violences online, they would rather not have that, because one, the police officer would send the victim to say, please go back and talk to the guy and tell him to stop. All right. And that's because they themselves aren't capacitated. And that's also what has come out of our researches. Or they tell them, please go to the Women and Child Protection Unit. And they go there and they said, oh, well, we don't really know how to deal with this issue. Please go back to the police. So we had, for instance, here in Namibia, and I think this has been reported across the region, is that we have, there's the capacity is not just at Parliament, and I'm happy to note, former parliamentarians and current parliamentarians, them noting that they, even at that level, there's no capacity, there's no understanding. It goes all the way to the levels of even at home. It goes to the levels of at police level. And so there's a lot of work to be done. It needs to be done by us. It needs to be done by everyone. But we need platform owners, to meet us halfway in raising this awareness. Thank you.
Thank you, Nashilongo. I'll bring in comments quickly. Kilanga says the SADC Parliamentary Forum has developed the GBV model law. I wish our parliaments to begin incorporating the law soon, as it addresses some of the issues mentioned. So I think beyond just our own national borders, looking at regional responses could be very important in that. Muzaf, no, I was looking. Maria from the Parliament of Zimbabwe asks a question: how can we strengthen Parliamentary Women Caucus to fight online violence against women? Maybe quickly, Honorable Sarah Opendi, if you can respond to that. How can we strengthen the caucus in Parliament, since you're already chairing the caucus? What ways can we strengthen your work, Honorable Pendi? Thank you.
Rosebell, where Honorable is, it is raining.
Sorry.
Yes, she has sent a message that we should send her the question, and certainly I will come back with her response. Okay, we'll move forward because we are coming almost to the end of the webinar. I wanted to share more in terms of Brenda Nasanga says, isn't it better to disseminate and engage girls and women more
so that they can use the knowledge and access information on digital security and protection, instead of just strengthening the law that we have in existence. So that balance, where is the work more going to disseminate, educate in terms of protection, or also a prevention and protection, but also the law? Who would like to take on that? From my perspective, is that you need both. You need people to have the information, but you also need justice where there are breaches. And for sure, we have also many cases that I think Nashilongo has talked about that we need to be addressing. So we can do both at the same time. I wanted to bring Honorable back in the conversation. There was a question on Parliament still. Honorable Lugangira, if you can come back in to give us your final thoughts of this webinar, having heard from different panelists and different regions. How are we moving from here, from this day? What are we going away with to do?
Thank you. I think what I can quickly say, and I've been trying to go quickly through the chats, I'll just respond to the ones that I think were very striking. One is that parliamentarians should learn how to ignore it and deal with it. To be honest, I think you can say that if you have not experienced it. I know different groups go through abuse, but when it's a parliamentarian and you're female, that abuse goes up to the level of the community that voted for you. And it's not easy for you to go to each and every person to try and rectify the damage or tell your story or say it was cooked up. So that labeling stays with you and can potentially cost you in your next election as reference. So I think we should always try to be empathetic when these topics are being discussed. And if you've never been in those shoes, you cannot categorically say that you can just easily ignore it. That's the first thing. Second thing, I think what we have to recognize is there's a very close link between all this online trolling, online abuse, online gender abuse, and mental health. That's why people just don't want to be online, because they just can't deal with it. And I refer back, my third point is I've seen the links that our colleague from Meta has been putting, that there are different things online, different learning resources, different this, different that. But to be honest, as parliamentarians, we don't know them. I think deliberate effort needs to be done. Deliberate effort needs to be done to bring parliamentarians to get those kind of capacity building. Because I'm sure even many of you here don't know that there is a way. Yes, you can block, you can report, you can do. There's several steps that you can take. People, I think when you're in the tech world, you assume that everybody knows, but people don't know these things. So I think it's very important for us to make deliberate efforts, because at the end of the day, when we want to bridge the digital gap, we want to strengthen digital equality, right? It means we want more women online. But if you cannot get your legislators online, then you're not getting any achievement. How can you tap yourselves on the shoulders that you're doing so well, reaching women, reaching girls, but you're not reaching legislators?
Thank you.
And then at the end of the day, we're the ones who are responsible for making the laws, which later on, when I say you, I mean tech and that world will come up and say, oh, look, they've made up such laws which are so bad, we now can't work, we can't function. But how can I know best practice law? How am I going to be informed to make that correct decision? So I think it's high time that we stop working in silos and we work together, in this agenda. And we should remove this notion that we're out there looking for it. I can post a picture, I'm decently dressed, but someone will just come up and start discussing one of my parts. I didn't ask for it. So this notion that women are looking for it or we deserve it, it's not fair. And why am I talking about parliamentarians? Because if it's happening to women in power and it's scaring and shutting up women in power to use their voice online, what is it going to do to young girls? What is it going to do to teenagers? What is it going to do to adolescents? You know, I leave that question to you guys.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Definitely some of those expectations are deep rooted in the patriarchy, expecting that you're supposed to just hang in there no matter the violence that is being thrown at you. And we are here to say no more, no violence. We need to find a civil way to engage with whether it's a public official or any other person online, that we keep our debates healthy and not violent. So thank you so
sorry,
much.
Can I add something? Sorry, just one last thing. Usually in my experience, people hide behind saying, oh, as a politician, as a parliamentarian, you should be willing and you should accept criticism. So they make this abuse and trolling and they hide it behind the cover that they're being critical, but they're not discussing the agenda on the table. They're discussing things totally different. So I think maybe one of the things that I would like to appeal on all of you is to separate. Criticism is not a leeway or you know, something that gives you allowance or permission to be abusive. Criticism should be based on their agenda, not on the gender. You know, we focus on the agenda, not gender. Thank you.
Thanks so much, very much well put. Lastly, I would call Justice Batema for the last kind of words for us. Somebody had asked whether you take time to sensitize the community. And of course, Justice Batema works in the High Court of Uganda. So I would like to hear from him if he also takes time to go to the community. But also your last words. I thought I should bring that comment to you.
Thank you. No, Kagumire, people look at us and they think we are in another world. True. We are beyond approach, beyond reproach. But Batema is one different character who has changed the judiciary of Uganda. In the year 2000, I went to Zimbabwe University and studied women's law. I began with a diploma and then got lost in the forest of women's law and did a master's. Now we are about 10 or 12 judges on the higher bench, high court, people who have graduated with masters in women's law. And when we speak authoritatively. If you are looking for Mr. Batema in the judiciary of Uganda, you may not get him. Look for Sister Batema, because we speak a lot of sisterhood. We speak a lot of women's issue. One thing we have tried to do is train both the technical and non-technical staff so that we speak the same language. We are also not only raising awareness, but doing skills training with prosecutors. And if we make one breakthrough, one last breakthrough is with the Court of Appeal, because something gender sensitive may come from the lower bench, high court, but when it goes to the Court of Appeal, it is hit and it's trivialized. You know, once you trivialize women's issue, you create a wrong image to say like women's issues are not important, or to say that we shouldn't fight for women's rights. My last word is to say the fight for women's rights is a fight for human rights. The fight for women's rights or all types of discrimination against women is not a war of women against men. Rather, it is a fight for human rights and justice. Let us spread our wings in all sectors of this country, and we begin discussing gender. We begin studying gender as compulsory university units of study. That, for example, every budget, we made a breakthrough with Parliament. Every budget must have a gender audit. You are presenting a budget on agriculture. What is gender in it? You are importing tractors. Who is gonna use the tractors? The women want oxen plows and hoes. That's gender in it. You are planning water. Where is the borehole going to be planted? Is it here in the trading center where the men see their wives and they are proud to say, that's my wife, number one, number two, number three? Or is it in the valley where the water never dries up? So for me, I think gender is a compulsory study, not only in the judiciary, but also in Parliament. Last year, I had 13 workshops with members of Parliament. By then, the speaker was Honorable Rebecca Kadaga. She's also an OB of mine at the University of Zimbabwe. So we would easily liaise. I had an OG in UN Women, Uganda, country representative, Anna Mutavati. I think she's now in Kenya. We would easily link and make projects that bring out these issues so that we hit patriarchy, not because we are not patriarchal. Yes, we have been raised in patriarchal societies, but we should point out what is wrong. And we differentiate words. Is it natural? Is it normal? Is it obvious? Is it automatic? Those are my last words. Let's combat violence in all its forms.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for those wise words, Justice Batema. And I would like to hand over to Sipesa. We have just ran over a little over the time we had put to you. So we are sorry about that. I will hand back over to Sipesa to close for us. And thank you all our panelists. You've been absolutely brilliant and much needed for us to go through this day and commemorate Women's Day with you. Thank you so much. I wish you the best today. And back to Sipesa.
Thank you very much, Rosbel, for moderating a very, very interesting conversation. Clearly, hearing from all our panelists this afternoon, addressing or trying to address or combat the online violence against women and girls certainly require a collective effort. We all have a responsibility from members of parliament, we the citizens, we the online users, the women specifically, to our courts. And what has come out clearly for us and from everyone's contribution is sensitization that is required, also ensuring the laws are in place. On our end, we will certainly continue to have conversations around this area, advocate, produce research like we always do here at CIPESA, and also engage with the responsible or the duty bearers and everybody involved in this conversation to see to it that we are able to positively contribute to this effort. At this point, allow me to appreciate all our panelists this afternoon, Justice Batema, Sister Batema, for always being available every time CIPESA reaches out to you to engage in such conversation. Honorable Neema Lugangira, asante sana. Honorable Sarah Opendi, thank you so much. We know you had a Women's Day engagement in Tororo District, but still that did not stop you from joining us this afternoon. Susan El Said from Meta, thank you so much. And lastly, Nashilongo, thank you for always being available to sensitize, have conversation, share what you know and what we should do going forward. To our moderator, Rosbel Kagumile, thank you so much for putting effort and giving us your time this afternoon. And lastly, to our participants, we've had over 100 participants throughout the discussion. We do hope that you have picked a thing or two that you as an individual, you as a journalist, you as a civil society organization, and mostly representatives from the different parliaments, different government officers will be able to take on the matter and see to it that we certainly positively contribute to ending online violence against women and girls. On behalf of CIPESA and my own behalf, I would like to say thank you so much for sharing your Women's Day with us. And we do hope that we'll continue having this conversation going forward. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And do not stop engaging on our social media. Please don't forget to tag CIPESA in the continuing conversation, but also use the hashtag Internet Freedom Africa and hashtag Digital Eco. And we continue the debate off the Zoom, but on our social media platform. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Have a good evening.